right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the open meeting for Thursday, December 2nd, 2021, and ask the Commission Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has indicated of Tuesday, 3rd, 2020. There's no need to discuss those minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of November 23rd, 2021.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda. Each has informed me there's no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 2 through 3, the order for limited reopening and request for comments associated with agenda item 4, the suggested minute associated with agenda item 6, denying Mr. Jardin's request for a formal review of his complaint against no.
Move we approve the notices of investigation associated with agenda items 2 and 3.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. For agenda item 4, I move back 4220. I move we approve the order for a limited reopening and second request for comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item 6, docket 3720, CC 232379. I move that we deny Mr. Jardin's request for a formal review of his complaint.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to agenda item 5, which is docket 5-FG-104. This is the quadrennial planning process scoping memo, and Commissioner Huebner is going to discuss.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair. As you said, this is our quadrennial planning process number 4, and we are moving along in that process. I'll just briefly summarize where we've been. So on March 19th of 2020, we issued a notice to open this docket related to the energy efficiency and renewable resource programs and determine their appropriate goals, priorities, and measurable targets. We started a potential study, which was delivered to us on September 10th of 2021 for energy efficiency. And then we had also authorized a rooftop solar PV. That study was delivered by on October 4th of 2021. We have 6 formal intervening organizations in this docket. But we started or continued this process with a request for comments on the scope. And we had 14 different organizations provide comments. Overall, I thought those comments were really good. I appreciated each of the entities for providing their information to us. I think a lot of them really supported the direction that staff had laid out and that we had discussed in our roadmap to zero carbon docket. There was a lot of suggestions about details that staff and other parties could continue to investigate within these buckets. The memo lays out a schedule, a potential schedule, and then it lays out in Table 2 the phases and topics to be discussed. And what we're going to approve today is that Table 2. The schedule will sort of go as it can proceed, and some of the commenters asked for a little more time in that process, which my understanding staff is amenable to that change to allow for more time. So as far as looking at Table 2 goes, there was a few different comments that I'll just address, and one change that I would be suggesting, and then obviously open to hearing from my colleagues. The one change that I would ask for is on Phase 2 under the budget. We looked at energy efficiency and renewables. There is a small budget for the EERD program, and that's related to more research projects. And because that doesn't exactly fit efficiency and renewables, it does kind of fall into other. But there was one comment, and staff noted this, that we may want to just add that as a specific item, would be the EERD budget under that budget issues. It will be something that we approve one way or another, even if we keep the number the same, but it could be part of that discussion of what the ultimate budget would be. So I would kind of insert that as number 3 and then make other number 4, so a very minor change. So that would be the only proposal the only thing I would propose to actually change on here. I think there was a lot of other good suggestions that we're mostly covering. So open to your comments on other changes. And I think the other one that stuck out to me, I don't propose a change here, although I'm open to that discussion, is with the local governments had some comments about coordinating with their efforts, and there were some other comments from others about federal dollars, infrastructure dollars, or other dollars, and how focused infrastructure can be used for that. And my understanding is those conversations are are ongoing and are going to continue to happen. I don't know that there's a specific change in this scope, but I do think that that's good for those conversations to happen to figure out how we can synergize. So with that, Chair, I'm going to kick it to you.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Heber. Really, the only suggested change I was going to make was moving the comment period in response to the number of comments that we got seeking additional time, but I understand that we can work that into our schedule, and that's not going to be a problem. I read every single comment that was submitted, and as a general matter, I appreciate the depth of the comments, and I want to encourage those comments to be filed as we get to the next phase, right? So I thought a lot of them were maybe a little premature for this part of the process, but I still welcome that participation, and they did raise some good points, but nothing to the level where I would suggest making changes to what's in this table 2. But I would encourage those comments to be filed as we work through the different phases, because I do think that they can be helpful. So I wasn't inclined to suggest any changes to the table.
Okay. Commissioner Nowak.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate all the comments as well. This has been structured a little different how we've done it in the past, to kind of break it out into micro and macro and different phases, which I think is helpful. But it's also, when I read all the comments, I was concerned because I started to think, are they talking about the Focus on Energy Efficiency program, or are they talking about a different program that they want to create? Because what kept kind of coming back in my mind is this is starting to delve into something that is not the Focus program, and either it's mission creep or we're going to replace things in energy efficiency that I think that this program, which has been very successful in doing, is now becoming a carbon reduction program. And if the state wants to have one of those, that's fine, but we shouldn't use this. The scope here in that chart, the first 5 things in the macro policies, to me, are not in traditional alignment with what the Focus program is and what its mission is. And I think we need to get a better understanding of where we can go legally with some of these issues as we go into that micro level of what can be done under the guise of the Focus program. Because what I'm concerned about is this is going to become the vehicle to implement the goals of a task force, which, at least a few of what we've said, we don't think, at least I know, I've heard before, we're in all of the above. You know, I don't think that the Focus program should become something to get to a zero carbon policy, which is not a feasible end game for this state. So I am concerned that the goals here are getting too far astray from energy efficiency. I mean, for example, too, there's a lot more discussion about collaboration between Focus and the utility, whether it's their voluntary programs or their demand response programs. Again, there already is collaboration. The Focus program doesn't need to take over. I don't know if, you know, it's not a takeover, but we're starting to get to these close to the lines of what more is Focus going to become. The utility programs should all be unique on their own. I'm also concerned about discussing now electrification programs. It struck me as a little ironic that we're going to talk about electrifying more things in an energy efficiency program, right? I was like, I thought I might be missing something there. So, and a lot of the commenters talk too about, you know, again, it's in the micro level, incentives for switching out your home appliances that are gas. I'm not sure that that's where this program needs to be going, because it's not certain yet that gas is necessarily more efficient than electrical appliances. And before we basically then turn Focus into a $100 million pilot program for that, I think we need some more data. Same thing too with programs and offerings for low-income customers. I think we need some more, and I understand Aptum is getting some more data on that, but there are so many out there now. Before we expanded into the rural program, we did an analysis to say, here's where the gaps are with reaching and utilization in the rural programs. And then we said, okay, let's go do it. Here, we're just saying, let's do it, and then we'll get the data later. So I think we're just moving too fast with some of the scope of these things. I also, in the cost effectiveness decision in phase 2, talked about, during that time, I would also remove the avoided T&D costs. I objected to that when we looked to include it because it was too speculative at the time. Your suggestion to add the EERD program back in, that was a program that about 8-9 years ago, it was underutilized and we cut substantially. So unless I've missed something, there's no data showing me that there's been a call to have it back. Like if there's a need for it, then we can talk about it, but I think that's premature to add that back in the scope now. So unless there's a major, I think we should go back to, focusing this program on energy efficiency with the resulting carbon emissions that come along with it, which is how we've traditionally done it in the past. Focusing on the industrial end users that have the major savings for us. That's where the largest kilowatt hour savings come from. But the way this is formalized here, it's too concerning to me that we're turning this program into something different than and the legislature will pay attention to that. So I can't support the scope here as written.
Okay. So you're at all three or all four maybe?
I didn't even look at the alternative. Yeah.
Okay. Just to respond to some of your points, I think to me we're at that phase where we're not making any decisions today. We're deciding what's inbound for investigation and discovery and exchange of ideas as this process continues, which is going to be another 8-month process here on out. So I think in general, what we've seen here is an evolution or possible evolution based on technologies that are changing in the world of electrification. As one example, I thought the WUA's comments were really instructive to me. Their interest and willingness to look at the further collaboration with utility voluntary programs and how that fits into their offerings, I thought was very constructive. And so I think a lot of these, like I said, when I read the comments, there was a lot of things that looked like we're going to be able to investigate. And I think the bounds that you set up are appropriate in that this is a program that the legislature has created. And so everything we do has got to be in line with, it's got to be in line with the laws that we have today.
Right.
So I agree with that. So with that, I think the only maybe point of disagreement is whether you would accept my friendly amendment on just adding a line item for EERD to see where that takes us. It's about $100,000 a year now, so it's very small. As Commissioner Nowak mentioned, it was a larger line item before. I'm not suggesting that it would change, but just because it's not efficiency, it's not renewables, it's sort of a market transformation research that it may be beneficial to just line item it out and see what budget we land at. If you're not amenable, I think it fits in other. It's just a matter of calling it out verbally here today.
I don't have a problem adding it, and I'll tell you why. Because I think we're at exactly the point that Commissioner Nowak indicated, and that is we're in data gathering mode.
Right.
So we're not making any decisions, and make no bones about it, the legislature hasn't stopped looking at this program. It comes up all the time, and we get all sorts of questions about what we're doing with this program. So I think we are all well aware of the statutory guidelines. I mean, I would look back to decisions that were made in the past where we turned the Focus program into We used 20% as a pilot program for anaerobic digestion. I mean, that was something that was brand new. And there were questions about whether or not that was an appropriate use of the focus dollars. I think what we're doing is exactly what we talked about in the roadmap docket, and that is we can do one of two things. We can ignore that the industry is changing and that the utilities that we regulate have come out and made strides and they have made commitments to change their generating portfolio. They've done that. We've not told them to do that. So we can either choose to be proactive and look at what that change is going to do to our system and how it's going to impact energy efficiency and renewable resource deployment in the state, or we can ignore what they've announced and we can pretend that it's business as usual and that we shouldn't be looking at different ways to legally use our focus on energy dollars. And I think that we're doing exactly that. So I'm amenable
Okay.
to your friendly amendment.
That would put me at Alt 2, approve all this with that minor amendment?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'll make the motion then. In docket 5 FE 104, I move that we approve the scope of the Quad 4 planning process identified in Table 2 with that one amendment.
Second that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay. All right. That ends our official business for today. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 9th, 2021 at 10:30 a.m.
I move we stand adjourned until December 9th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.